Darius was a bright 10-year-old boy who lived in a quiet neighborhood with his father, James. The two of them shared a small but comfortable home filled with books, pictures, and the warm energy of a close-knit family. James was a respected lawyer, known in the community for his unwavering sense of justice and fairness. Darius admired his father deeply and often dreamed of following in his footsteps. One warm summer evening, Darius decided to treat himself to some snacks from the local store. The corner shop, a staple of the neighborhood, was a familiar and friendly place. Its brightly lit aisles were lined with candy, chips, and soda, an inviting sight for any kid. Darius had saved up a few dollars from his allowance and was excited to spend them on his favorite treats. Dressed in a plain t-shirt and jeans, Darius entered the store with a carefree spirit. He wandered the aisles, carefully selecting the items he wanted. As he picked out a candy bar and a bag of chips, he placed them in his pockets to keep his hands free while he browsed. His plan was simple: gather everything he wanted and pay at the register before leaving. What Darius didn't realize was that someone was watching him. Near the entrance of the store stood Officer Kyle, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a stern expression. Kyle had been patrolling the area and decided to stop by the store for a quick look around. His eyes fell on Darius as soon as the boy entered, and a spark of suspicion ignited in his mind. To Kyle, the sight of a young black boy walking into the store alone was enough to trigger his biases. He crossed his arms and watched closely as Darius moved through the aisles. When he saw the boy place snacks into his pockets, Kyle's suspicion turned into certainty. In his mind, Darius wasn't a customer. He was a thief. Darius, unaware of Kyle's gaze, continued to browse. He paused in front of the candy section, tilting his head as he debated between two options. Finally, he chose a bag of gummy bears and slipped it into his pocket with the others. That's when Kyle decided to act. With heavy, deliberate steps, Kyle approached Darius. The boy turned around and froze when he saw the officer towering over him. Kyle's face was hard, his eyes cold. "What do you think you're doing, kid?" he demanded. Startled, Darius stammered, "I am just picking snacks. I was going to pay for them." Kyle's lips curled into a sneer. "Don't lie to me. Thieves like you always have an excuse." Without waiting for an explanation, he grabbed Darius by the arm. The boy flinched, his eyes wide with fear. "I'm not stealing. I was going to pay." Darius protested, his voice trembling. Kyle ignored him and began dragging him toward the store's exit. Other shoppers turned to watch the commotion, but no one stepped forward to intervene. Some exchanged uneasy glances, while others quickly looked away. Darius's heart pounded in his chest as he was pulled outside. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the quiet street. The warm air felt suffocating as Darius tried to understand what was happening. Kyle tightened his grip on the boy's arm and leaned down to his level. "You need to learn a lesson," he said, his voice cold and menacing. Reaching into his pocket, Kyle pulled out a lighter. The metallic click of the lid opening made Darius's stomach drop. "No, please," the boy cried, tears streaming down his face. "I wasn't stealing." Kyle flicked the lighter, igniting a small flame. He held it up, his expression unyielding. "That's what they all say," he muttered before pressing the flame against Darius's hand. The pain was immediate and searing, and Darius let out a scream that echoed through the empty street. When Kyle finally released him, Darius clutched his burned hand and ran. Tears blurred his vision as he sprinted home, his mind racing with fear and confusion. Why had this happened? Why had no one helped him? His small frame shook as he reached his front door and pushed it open. Inside, James was sitting in the living room, reading over some legal documents. He looked up in alarm as Darius burst in, his face streaked with tears and his hand clutched tightly to his chest. "Darius, what happened?" James asked, immediately standing and rushing to his son's side. Darius couldn't speak at first. He collapsed into his father's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. James held him, gently stroking his back and whispering soothing words. "It's okay, son. You're safe now." Tell me what happened." Through broken sobs, Darius recounted the incident at the store. James listened silently, his jaw tightening with every word. When Darius showed him the burn mark on his hand, James's calm demeanor cracked. His eyes filled with a mixture of pain and anger as he examined the wound. "No one has a right to hurt you," James said, his voice firm but gentle. "We will make this right." The next morning, James and Darius walked into the local police station. The building was bustling with activity, but the room seemed to quiet as the two of them entered. James was a well-known figure in the community, and his presence commanded attention. The staff greeted him with respect, but their expressions turned uneasy when they noticed the burn on Darius's hand. James approached the front desk and requested to see the officer who had been on duty at the store the previous evening. It didn't take long for Kyle to be brought into the room. When he saw James, his confident stride faltered. Darius clung to his father's coat, his small hand gripping the fabric tightly. "My son says you burned him with a lighter," James said, his voice calm but laced with authority. "Is this true?" Kyle stammered, trying to downplay the incident. "It was a misunderstanding," he said, avoiding James's piercing gaze. "The kid was stealing, and I was just trying to scare him." James's expression didn't change. "You call this a misunderstanding?" he asked, gesturing to Darius's burned hand. His tone was measured, but the intensity of his words left no room for argument. He filed a formal complaint, recounting the events in detail and presenting the burn as evidence. The case moved swiftly through the legal system, garnering attention due to James's reputation and the shocking nature of the allegations. In court, Darius bravely testified, recounting the incident with clarity and emotion. Witnesses from the store confirmed his account, and the burn on his hand served as undeniable evidence of Kyle's cruelty. The jury found Kyle guilty of assaulting a minor. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison and permanently removed from the police force. The courtroom was silent as Kyle was led away in handcuffs, his head bowed in shame. As James and Darius left the courthouse, reporters swarmed them, cameras flashing. James ignored them, placing a protective hand on Darius's shoulder. "You were brave today," he told his son. "You stood up for yourself, and justice was served." Though the physical pain of the burn would fade, Darius knew the experience would stay with him forever. But his father's unwavering support gave him strength. Together, they walked toward a future built on resilience, hope, and the belief that no one is above the law.